Well, hello, everybody. This is Pastor Ray, and I wanted to come to you, really do something that we haven't done, I don't think, in the history of the Village Church. We had a really great service Sunday concerning New Year's and kind of how to get the New Year started right. And my hope was that we'd have a great recording of it because we had a lot of people that have asked for it. But as happens sometimes, we had a little glitch and we didn't get the recording of Sunday service. So what I thought we'd do is just let me talk through quickly some of the things that we talked about on Sunday, and maybe it'll be helpful for you as you begin this new year. That's what we want more than anything, is you to have a great, great new year. In our talk Sunday, we kind of all agreed that resolutions don't work. I've done it, you've done it. I'm going to read so many books a week. I'm going to exercise so many minutes a day. I'm going to do all of these things. And then the truth is, after a few days, I haven't done any of those things. So what I said is, instead of trying to do it that way, let's just have 5 thoughts, 5 sentences that kind of become guardrails for us in the new year. 5 things that maybe will propel us a little bit better into the direction that we want to go in. So that's what I want to talk about. The first one is this. For 2012, I want to be ruthlessly honest about the condition of my heart. That's where it all begins. I want to be ruthlessly honest about the condition of my heart. You might want to write this down. The greatest challenge that I have in 2012 is the greatest challenge I had in 2011, and the greatest challenge I had in 2010, and the greatest challenge I had in 2009, and that is my heart. That's the biggest deal. Let me correct a few misconceptions that many of us have. Many of us think that once you pray a prayer and ask Jesus to be the leader of your life, then it's over with. You don't have to do anything else. That's one decision, made it for you. I actually was raised in a church that taught that. I mean, if you could say, I prayed a prayer to follow Jesus on September the 3rd, 1974, you didn't really have to revisit that again. But we know that the Bible says that that's something you need to be thinking about every day. Is Jesus your Lord today? Is he the one you're following today? Every morning you ought to say, Lord, I want to follow you today. In the same sense, maybe you have analyzed your heart at some point in your life. Maybe there was a period when you really looked deep inside. That's wonderful. But it needs to be something that we ruthlessly do every single day. Jeremiah 17:9 says this, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? And I want you to think about that. Your heart is deceitful. My heart is deceitful. So 2012, I want to look at the condition of my heart regularly. I don't know about you, but I know about me. I know I have become at points in my life a great actor. I can act as if everything is fine and everything is good, when in fact my heart has grown very cold. Jesus had the harshest words for one group of people. It wasn't the alcoholics or the drug addicts or the prostitutes or the tax collectors. It was the hypocrites. People who pretended one way but were in fact another. I did this before I began my faith walk with Christ. I did it after my faith walk began with Christ. Sadly, I have done it as pastor of the Village Church. There have been periods of time my heart has grown cold, and yet I have just put a happy face on and acted like everything was fine. I need to be real with myself and real with God in 2012. If I have a fear in my heart, I want to acknowledge it before the Lord. If I have anger in my heart, I want to acknowledge it before the Lord. There are times when my heart can become cold and numb and hard, and I want to acknowledge that before the Lord, and I want to do everything in my power to keep my heart soft and pliable in His hands. You might want to write this down if you're watching this little video, because this might be helpful. Too often we try to use God to change our circumstances, when in fact God is trying to use our circumstances to change us. So 2012 is not about whether you're going to have perfect circumstances. You won't. It's about whether you'll let God change you through whatever circumstances you're having to go through. That's the big deal. Keep your heart soft, keep it pliable, and know God is working on you. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5 says this, examine yourself to see if your faith is really genuine. Test yourself. If you cannot tell that Jesus Christ is in you, it means you have failed the test. I don't want us to fail the test. That's the first thing. Second thing, guidelines, guardrails for our life. 2012, I want my life to be shaped more by Jesus and less by culture. I want my life to be shaped more by Jesus and less by my culture. Romans 12:2, great verse from the New Living Translation, says it like this: don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Now, let me tell you again how this was interpreted by many as I was growing up. They said, we need to be separate from the world. So they said, okay, who represents the world? Hippies. Don't forget, 1960s, I'm growing up. Hippies. They've got long hair. They're not dressed properly. They're kind of counterculture. So we'll have short hair because they have long hair. Or in many churches, the Bible Belt especially, the mentality was they drink wine with their meals. Therefore, that's what the world does. We are not a part of the world, so we will be teetotalers. Or there was, in the community I grew up in, a sense of you cannot see a movie that has really almost any movie. You couldn't go see it unless it was a Disney movie. And then the Disney group began to have gay affirming days, and so then the church said, well, we can't even support Disney movies anymore. When I think about those things, it seems so ridiculous to me now. It seems crazy. None of those things reflect who Jesus was. Jesus didn't talk about long hair. Jesus didn't talk about watching a movie. Jesus didn't talk about drinking wine or not drinking wine. None of those things reflect what Jesus taught. He spoke of helping the lowest of the low. He said, when you've done it unto the least of these, you've done it unto me. He spoke of not retaliating when you are wronged. Well, I grew up in an environment where you'd punch somebody in the nose and never even think that you were doing something that was not Christ-like, because that wasn't the big deal. He taught us we should love our enemies. How many of us heard of that? I want in 2012 to make sure that my life is shaped more by Jesus and less by my culture. I used to listen to talk radio all the time because I'm come out of a radio background when I was a young guy. I enjoyed some of the creativity of Rush Limbaugh and some of the other guys that you listen to on the radio. But you know what I discovered for me? I discovered that their tone, their what they considered humorous, it wasn't Christ honoring to me. And so I turned it off. Now, I will tell you, I do listen to sports talk a lot, and but they don't seem, it's not the same thing. It doesn't seem to be the same thing. This was a prayer I read last week, and I love this. This is just a little part of the prayer. May our hands remain open, caressing, never clenched, save to pound the doors of all who barter justice to the highest bidder. You know, that says to me, it says, Lord, I want my hands to be open. I want to be kind and gracious. The only people I want to really bang the door on are those people who are selling justice to the highest bidder. I want to be a champion of justice for people who are hurting, for the lowest of the low. That's who Christ championed. That's who I want to champion. Third thing, I want to trust God more as I learn to walk the Jesus way. I want to learn to trust God more as I learn to walk the Jesus way. Trust is essential for salvation. The Bible says there's no judgment awaiting those who trust him. This is John chapter 3, verse 18, right after John 3, 16, 17, which most of us have heard. 18 we don't talk about so much. There is no judgment awaiting those who trust him. But those who do not trust him have already been judged for not believing in the only Son of God. Or, you want to have a productive life? This is another verse about trust. John 12:46, I have come as a light to shine in this dark world so that all who put their trust in me will no longer remain in the darkness. Now let me tell you what happens with trust. Three things kind of kill it. One is amnesia. We just forget. We forget that God has shown us through. God has delivered us. God has helped us through difficulties. Inertia is another thing that hinders us. Inertia is that being stuck in the mud. You can't kind of take your foot and make another step. And then the idea of mañana, you know, that's Spanish for tomorrow. That idea of, I'm not going to step out today, but maybe tomorrow, those things kill us. Well, Jane and I have talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about the fact that we want to walk this walk of faith, trusting God, recognizing it's not always easy. Here's what we do. Jane and I did this. We said, okay, last year was hard. She was so sweet. She typed up a 2011, everything that we were involved in 2011, everything we did, every funeral I did, every wedding I did, every good positive thing, every trial that we walked through, every financial, she kind of put it down. And then she said, boy, I love you. What a year we had. Let's do it again. But you know the truth, we want to kind of eliminate the tough stuff. We want to eliminate the tough stuff. But for me to be the man of God that I want to be, there's going to be some challenges, and I've got to be willing to step out and do the things God is leading us to do. I don't know what they may be. Who knows? God may one day whisper in my ear or your ear, go to a foreign country, become my ambassador in another country. Or maybe God would whisper in my ear, Ray, start another service at a different time so people could come, maybe in a different part of town. So you'd have Village Hateville and you'd have Village somewhere else. Well, that scares me to death. I'll be honest, that scares me to death because it requires work, it requires faith, it requires stepping out in a way that's I haven't done it in a long time. But Jane and I said, you know what, if God says it. Now, she did say this, Ray, let's make sure God says it, because if you say it, I don't think I want to step out real hard. But if God says it, I'm in. And so I appreciate that very much. It's fearful to step out. And I tell you, the big fearful part of it is it's like being between trapezes. You can imagine trapeze artists swinging through the air and then letting go. There's that sense of, oh no, until the next trapeze is there and you can grab hold of it. One writer described it this way. It's not so much that we're afraid of change or so in love with old ways, but it's that place in between that we fear. It's like being in between trapezes. I like this next line. It's Linus when his blanket is in the dryer. There's nothing to hold on to. Well, that's me. And when my blanket is in the dryer, when I'm hanging between one trapeze and not yet catching the other trapeze, I'm frightened. But I know if I want to get to the promised land, I've got to be able to leave Egypt, travel through the wilderness to ultimately land in the promised land. And I know that you want to do that too. I'll tell you something that'll help you on this faith walk, this trust walk, is this thought. When hard times come, decide you're going to be a student and not a victim. Decide you are going to be a student and not a victim. Here's the difference. A victim says, why did this happen to me? A student, on the other hand, says, what can I learn from this? A victim believes his hard times have come because God is trying to punish him. A student understands that God allows hard times in order to help him grow. A victim believes God has abandoned him, but a student sees God's hand in everything, including the worst moments of his life. I look back, y'all, I've created a lot of mistakes, created a lot of mess. Ray Waters, being stupid, foolish, idiot, whatever you want to say, sinful. I've created a lot of mess. But you know what? I look back and I see God's hand every step of the way. And when I learned the lesson I needed to learn, I was able to move to the next step. Number 4, this is quick, but it's important. Number 4, I want to be bold in 2012 and beyond. I want to be bold in inviting people into a relationship with the Lord. I want to be bold in inviting people into a relationship with the Lord. Now, I of course, I don't want to be obnoxious. I don't want to have a megaphone and scream in someone's face, get saved. But I do want to be more bold than I have been, because y'all, in my life, in the life of my family, Jesus Christ has made the biggest difference of anything in our lives. Why would I not want to invite someone to explore what has become so real to us and has become so precious to us and so important to us? So that's what I want to do. 5th and final thing. Thanks for staying with me on this little recording. If you like this, maybe we'll learn how to do more this way. 5th thing is this. I want to be more aware. This is the big point. I want to be more aware of the clicking clock that is my life. I want to be more aware of the clicking clock that is my life. I have a significant birthday coming up this year. It's 5 months away, and it's not big to anybody. And I know we have people that are 90 years old in our church and older. And so we have people healthy and in their 70s and 80s. And so it's not a big deal, but it is in my head. It's been a big deal. In a little more than 5 months, I will turn 50 years old. Now, I know looking at this video, you're thinking, my, oh my, I would have guessed late 20s. I know that's bad. But anyway, I'm going to be 50. When I started the village, I was 31 years old. Ray, our worship leader, my oldest son, he was 11. Ethan, our associate pastor, co-pastor, wonderful preacher, singer, he was 8. And now I'm 50. And I know it's not old, and for many it's not a big deal, but something's happened over the last few months, and I'm aware of my mortality in a way that I never have been before. Listen to what Psalm 39 says. Psalm 39 says this, verse 4, if you want to maybe make a note of it. Show me, Lord, my life's end and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting my life is. Let me read it again. My life's end and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting my life is. My heart now is thinking about everything that I'm doing in life against the backdrop of a clock. Click, click, click. A clock clicking away. Psalm 90, verse 10 says this, our days may come to 70 years or 80 if our strength endures, yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. I saw this advertised a week ago. It was a clock, and you could put in the life expectancy for your gender and the country that you lived in, and then it would just every day tell you how many days you had left according to life expectancy. So United States life expectancy for a man is 78 years. I'm going to be 50, so I added 28 years. At 365 days, it gave me 10,220 days left if I lived the normal life expectancy, 10,220 days. And then tomorrow it would say 10,219 days. And the next day it would say 10,218 days. And the reality is it might be a lot less. Last week, one of our good friends, Larry Tilley, a good man, he used to come to our church on Wednesday nights especially, but a lot on Sundays too, but Wednesdays he would come. Funny, good guy, 49 years old, and he died. Then I was reminded of Jeff Porter this weekend. You know, he's the athletic trainer for the Braves, a great guy. His wife's name is Kathy. She's 54. They were going to the Chick-fil-A bowl game Saturday at the Georgia Dome. And a policeman decided to get into a car chase, or he heard there was a chase going on. He decided he would join the chase, and so he just took off, and he plowed into the SUV of Jeff Porter and Kathy, and it killed her instantly. And I know when they got up that morning and thought about their day, her death wasn't what was on the agenda. James 4:14 says this, why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. What is your life? You're here. It's like a mist. And it vanishes. So what's my life going to be about? 2012. Petty stuff? Don't want to be petty when I only got so many days left, right? How about gossipy stuff about others? Oh, let me tell you about so-and-so. Did you hear about so-and-so? Oh, my gosh. What about accumulating stuff? The end of my life, do I want that to be this deal? Ray accumulated lots of stuff? What about pretending to be somebody I'm not? Do I have time for that? What about hanging out with people who, you have some friends like this, and I have some friends like that. Not even friends. We have acquaintances that they suck the life out of us, and nothing changes. Nothing changes. Now, I love them in Jesus. I'll pray for them in Jesus. But you know what? My clock is ticking. I don't want to spend a ton of time with somebody that sucks the life out of me. What about this? Different people use different motivations to, for example, stop eating as much as they do. I've tried all kind of motivations. I want to look better and I want to do all of these things. And I can't believe I didn't turn my phone off. This was going so well. It's my wife. Do you see that? She will. Anyway, overeating. I don't want to stop overeating so I can look better in a bathing suit. I don't want to stop overeating. You know what? My clock is ticking. I don't want to spend days where it's all about food, where I wake up in the morning and all I can think about is breakfast, and then all I can think about is lunch, and then all I can think about is supper, and then I go to bed miserable, because I've overeaten. The clock in my life is ticking. I don't want to live that way. So Jane and I are taking some steps. We're saying, let's not live that way. You know what I want my life to be about? Love. Love. Hope. Encouraging people who are down. I want it to be about my family. I feel like God has blessed me with the greatest family. Way more than I could ever deserve. Way more than I could ever deserve. And I want my life to be about family. And then there are people that have kind of been adopted into our family, and they're like family. I want my life to be about them. And then there are great friends, and there's our church. I want my life to be about that, seeing someone who's down and being able to lift them up out of the mire and the muck and see them get their life on a good path. And so I can go to bed at night and say, that was a good day. God did some good things, and he used me in the midst of it all. What is your 2012 going to be about? What is your 2012 going to be about? I suggest you come up with a few statements and you say, God, let these be guardrails for my life this year. And we know we're not going to do it perfectly, but we're going to do our very best to let God do something terrific in our lives. Hey, thanks for watching this little video. I hope it helped you. I hope your 2012 will be fabulous, and I'm looking forward to us spending a lot of time together as we see God using us and growing us and building us into the people he wants us to be. God bless you. If you don't have a church home, hope to see you at the Village on Sunday, and let's just have a great 2012. See you.